Hello, my name's Karen Stangroom and welcome to Conquer Crochet, the channel for tips, tricks and techniques for conquering your crochet. Everything I talk about in today's video will be linked in the descriptions below, and if you're feeling generous this Christmas, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and do all those other lovely things that you need to do on a YouTube video. So far in our Christmas dinner Christmas tree, we have made the Brussels sprouts, which we've taken from the Kawaii crochet book. This will be linked in the descriptions below, along with the patterns for all of the other decorations that we've covered so far. Today we are going to make a Christmas pudding. No Christmas dinner would be complete without our Christmas pudding. So let's get on with the tutorial. So for this tutorial I'm using double knit yarns. I have a brown for the Christmas pudding, I have white for the cream to go over the Christmas pudding, and I have green for the holly leaves. For the holly berry I'm using a pom-pom. You could use one sort of medium sized pom-pom, or you could use 3 smaller ones if you wanted to. To sew on the pom-pom I'm using a red thread and my thread needle. I also have a small amount of red to make the mouth to go on our Christmas pudding. I did try it with black, you couldn't see it and it seemed a bit silly, so I thought we'd go with the red, so it ties in nicely with the pom-pom that we're using. I have 8mm toy eyes and the backs to go with those. I have a stitch marker. I'm going to be using a 3mm crochet hook because we really want the stitches to be quite tight. We don't want to see any of the toy stuffing, which you'll also need. So this is polyester toy stuffing. I have scissors to cut off my end and my needle for sewing in my ends, and you may also want to use a row counter just to help you when you get to the middle section of your pudding part. You may want to keep note of which round you are on. So we're going to start off with the brown so we can make the main body of the pudding. We're going to start off with a magic ring. I'll put a link in the descriptions below to a video I made on different ways you can do the magic ring, but do the magic ring whichever way you prefer. And then we chain 1. Now we're going to be working in spirals, so we're not going to be joining and chaining 1 after each round, we're just going to continue working round. So this is where you might want to be using your stitch marker. So we're going to do 6 double crochets into the magic ring. That's UK terminology. In US terminology that would be 6 single crochets. So into the magic ring, making sure you're going under both parts of that magic ring, and we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And essentially what we're going to be doing is making a ball. So we're going to start off by increasing. So let's find our sixth stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going in here. Let me get my needle just to show you where we're going in, she says. So we're going in through this stitch here. Okay, so that's the 6th one that we made. And we're going to go in there, we're starting round 2, so we're going in through that part there, that stitch there, with 2 double crochets. So we're going to do 2 double crochets in each stitch, so that's going to be 18 stitches in this round. And that first one is always a little bit trickier to work, just because it seems to tighten up. So we're going to do 1 and 2. And in the next stitch 3 and 4, next stitch 5 and 6, next stitch 7 and 8, next stitch 9 and 10, and in the last stitch 11 and 12. And here you might want to just pull in your tail a little bit, tighten up that first magic ring that we made. So that's round 2. Round 3 is a little bit different, so we're going to be doing 1 increase as we go around. So we're going to do 2 double crochets in the first stitch, 1 double crochet in the next, and then repeat that, 2 double crochets, 1 double crochet. And we repeat that all the way around, and because we're increasing by 6, we're going to have 18 stitches by the end of this round. So 2 in the first one, 1, 2, 1 in the next, 3, 2 in the next, that's 4 and 5, 1 in the next, that's 6, 2 in the next, 7 and 8, 1 in the next, 9, 2 in the next, 10, 11, 1 in the next, 12, 2 in the next stitch, 13 and 14, 1 in the next, 15, and then the last repeat, 2 in the next one, 16, 17, 1 in the next, oops, didn't go through then, 1 in the next, 18. So that's the end of round 3. Round 4, again we're going to increase, so we're going to do 2 double crochets, 1 double crochet in the next, 1 double crochet in the next. That's the repeat pattern. 2 double crochets, 1, 1, 2 double crochets, 1, 1. Again, we're increasing by 6 stitches each time, so we're going to have 24 stitches by the end of this round. So 1, 2, 1 on its own, 3, 1 on its own, 4. Now if you want to, this is where you could put your stitch marker in, because it does get a little bit confusing. So I've done 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, so I'm going to put my stitch marker in that very first stitch. That was it, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it goes in there. So 1, 2, and then 1 on its own, 1 on its own. 2 together, 1, not 2 together, sorry, 2 in the stitch, 1, 2, 1 on its own, 1 on its own. 2 in the next stitch, 1, 2, 2 on its 1 on its own, 1 on its own, 2 in the next stitch, 1, 2, 1 on its own, 1 on its own, and then the last one, 2 together in that stitch, 1 on its own, 1 on its own. Oops. Okay, so that's 24 stitches we have. Take my stitch marker out. Next round, round 5, we're going to do 2 in the next stitch, and then 1, 2, 3 single ones. So I'm going to do the first double crochet, and then pick up my stitch marker and try and pop that one in there. That's 1, and then the second double crochet in that same stitch, 2, and then we're doing 3 individual double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and then we repeat that, 2 double crochets in the next stitch, 1 on its own, 1 on its own, 1 double crochet on its own, 2 double crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, 1 on its own, one on its own, one on its own, 2 double crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 3 individual ones in the next 3 stitches, so 1, 2 and 3, 2 double crochets in the next stitch, 1, 2, 3 on their own, 1, 2 and 3, and then we have the last repeat, so 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and then 1, 2 and 3. So we have 30 stitches in that round, so we're going to take the stitch marker out. I really struggled to get those out with longer nails. Okay, the next round is 2 double crochets and then 1, 2, 3, 4 individual double crochets. So 1 double crochet, faff around with the stitch marker again. Go on, in you go. Right, there's 1. Right, second double crochet in that first stitch, and then we're going to do 4 individual double crochets in the next 4 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 double crochets, 1, 2, 4 single crochets, 1, 2, 3 and 4, 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and then 4 individuals, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Obviously, if I'm going too fast for you, you can slow the video down, you can pause it, make a little note of what this round is, and then skip on. So 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and then 4 on their own, 1, 2, 3, try 3 again, 3 and 4, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, 4 on their own, 1, come on, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then we do the last repeat, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and then 4 on their own, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So that's the end of round 6, and we have increased now up to 36 stitches. Okay, so I'm going to take my stitch marker out, and the next round, which is round 7, we're going to double crochet into each stitch going around, so no increases in this one. We're just going to make the body of the pudding. So each round will have 36 stitches. So it's round 7 that we're starting now. Pop my stitch marker back in, she says. Come on. There we go. So I've done 1, so I've got 35 left to do in this round. So we're going to do 1 double crochet, UK terminology, that's single crochet in US. In every stitch going around, we're on row 7. We're going to do it all the way up to row 13. So row 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and 13 are all going to be exactly the same. When you get to here, take your stitch marker out, start the next row, put your stitch marker back in. Do not join, do not chain 1, just work in the spiral going round. So pause the video now whilst you work rows 7 to 13. So I've just come to the end of round 13. I'm just going to pop the stitch marker in. I've actually given up with my lovely stitch marker. I've gone back to a basic stitch marker because my long nails don't cope with it. Okay, so that's nice and secure. So that's row 13 that we've just completed. So now we're going to insert our toy eyes. And we're going to insert those between 11 and 12. So if that's 13, that's 12, that's 11. So our toy eyes are going in along this part here. We just bring that a little bit closer. So that is row 13, 12, 11, and our toy eyes are going in between 11 and 12. So I'm just going to take my eyes. I'm not going to worry about the backs for a minute. So 13, 12, 11. So my toy eyes are going in here. So there's one. So the second eye I'm going to put 2 stitches across, so there's a gap there, a gap there. I'm going to go into that third gap. Now we are quite close to the top here, so you just need to be careful you're not pushing your back over the stitches. Push the back on that one. There we go. Okay, so the eyes are in place. Next we need to do the mouth, and for the mouth we're going to need our needle and our thread. So to sew on the mouth, I'm going to make a little slip knot in my red yarn and then go to the other end of my yarn and thread my yarn needle. So I want to find a stitch just below the eyes that won't be seen from the front. So I pop my needle through there. Oh, I don't like that one. I can see that one through the front. Let's try one of these ones here. Yes, I can't see through the front there. So I'm just going to pull my yarn through, stop when you get to that slip knot, and take your needle back through the actual slip knot that you made. You have to be careful not to get caught around the eyes. And then pull the tail and the working yarn to close that slip knot up. And you won't see that from the front, but that's a really secure stitch. Okay, so I'm going to go 1 row down from the eyes. So let's move that a little bit closer. So I'm going to go 1 row down from the eyes and slightly in a bit. So I'm going to come out through this gap here, but obviously from the other side. So I'm going to come out here. And I'm going to go 2 rows down because it's quite a big ball that we're making for this pudding. So 1, 2, I'm going to go in here. And don't put it too tight, otherwise it'll bunch up your stitches. Okay, I now need to come back through. So I'm going to go along the same line that I went through the first time, but move over a couple of stitches. So I'm going to come through here underneath the eye. And then I'm going to go back into the same stitch gap that I had this stitch coming into here. I'm going to go back into it again. And you can have a play around with your mouth and see which ones you prefer. You might want to take the mouth wider, you might want a straight mouth, but I quite like the little smiley mouth. So I'm going to go back to the back of the yarn, so the back of the pudding, and find another stitch that you're not going to see from the front. Now we've got a lot of bits of yarn going on here, so let's make sure we're not going through tails. So leave a little bit of a loop that you can then go back through and tighten up. Don't tighten too much, otherwise you'll pull these stitches too tight. And then I'm just going to finish off with a knot on the back. So that should be nice and secure. And then I'm just going to cut off. I'm going to cut off both of the ends because they're going to get in the way otherwise. So there we are. So now we have our face attached. So So we need to take out the stitch marker, reattach our hook, and we are ready for the next round. Now you may also want to either cut or just tuck the original tail from the magic ring into your work just so it doesn't get in your way. So round 14 we're going to be double crocheting 2 together, and then we're going to do 4 single double crochets or 4 single crochets in US. So when we do our double crochets 2 together for our amigurumi, we don't necessarily want lots of bulkiness, so we're just going to go through the front stitches. So you know you have 2 parts to the stitch, there's the front and the back. We're just going through that front loop there. So I'm going to insert, yarn over, pull through, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through. So you should have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through those 3 loops. So that is a double crochet 2 together. I'm going to pop the stitch marker in there so I know that is my first stitch. We then do 4 double crochets in the normal way in the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. Let me just show you a little bit close up on the double crochet 2 together. So going through the front loop, yarn over, pull back through that loop, through the next loop, yarn over, pull back through the same loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull back through all 3 of those loops, and then do 4 double crochets over the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So essentially what we're doing is decreasing now. Those double crochet 2 together are the opposite of 2 double crochets in the same stitch that we were doing on the increase round. So we're doing the opposite now, obviously, to close off our ball. So double crochet 2 together, one double crochet, next stitch 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets, 4 double crochets, double crochet 2 together, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now it's a little bit tricky here because we're working, be careful. So double crochet 2 together, 1, 2, 3 and 4. You want to make sure your stitches are fairly tight, otherwise when you put the stuffing in you're going to see through the white. Sorry, carried on then. Double crochet 2 together, and then 1, 2, try that again, 2, 3 and 4. So that was row 14. Row 15, very similar, but we're decreasing again. So double crochet 2 together for that first stitch, pop your stitch marker back in. You can do these up, I just don't do them up very often. Okay, then we go 1, 2 and 3, because there are less stitches in this round, so we're only doing 3 double crochets in the repeat. Right, double crochet 2 together, and then 1, 2, 3, double crochet 2 together, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, and 3, double crochet 2 together, 1, 2, and 3. My tail's popped out again there, pop that back in. Next repeat, double crochet 2 together, 1, 2, and make sure you're closing these up quite tightly, and then 3 double crochets over the next 3 stitches, 2 and 3, double crochet together. What are you doing, Karen? Come on. Double crochet 2 together, those 3 loops, and then 1, 2, and 3, and that's the end of row 15. Row 16, you can see we're getting smaller and smaller here. Double crochet 2 together, pop your stitch marker back in, and this time we're going to do 2 double crochets after the double crochet 2 together. So that's 1 and 2, 2 together, 1 and 2, crochet 2 together, and 1 and 2, double crochet 2 together, 1 and 2, double crochet 2 together, 1 and 2, and then the double crochet 2 together. Make sure that's nice and tight. 1 and 2. Okay, so that was row 16. Row 17, we're going to double crochet 2 together and then just do 1 double crochet. So double crochet 2 together for our decrease, pop your stitch marker back in, and 1. And it's starting to get a lot smaller now, so double crochet 2 together, and 1, 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 and then the last repeat, double crochet 2 together, and 1 double crochet in the last stitch. Now I'm going to pull this last stitch quite a way out. and just take my stitch marker out for now, because now we are ready to put the stuffing in. So with the stuffing, you just want to take small amounts. You can roll them up into a little ball if you like, if it makes it easier to get through the hole, and just push them in. And you keep doing this until you have enough stuffing in it to hold the ball in place. You don't want to overstuff it, because as soon as you overstuff it, you start stretching the stitches and you'll be able to see the white through. So we don't really want to do that. Let's fill up as much as we can. Move those out of the way. Now I'm using polyester toy stuffing here. You could stuff with ends of yarn that you've cut off if you keep a yarn jar of your ends, particularly because this is a decoration and not a toy. Chances are this isn't going to get washed, or if it is, it's just going to be sort of surface sponged. So you could actually use maybe cotton wool. You may want to just use any old bits of fabric offcuts that you have, as long as there's something there just to keep it all nice and rounded. Might just put a little bit more in. I got the reds coming from. That's nice and squishy. I'm just going to push it away from the hole to start with, because we're going to be using these stitches, so we don't really want to be catching those, and we can play around with it afterwards. So we're coming up to the last round on the pudding. So I'm going to reinsert my hook. Now we're going to be just double crocheting 2 together all the way around, apart from the last 2 stitches. So let's do the first one. So double crochet 2 together, yarn over, pull through all 3, pop your stitch marker back in, and I'm going to close it this time just because it's so fiddly, I don't want to lose that. Right, double crochet 2 together in the next 2 stitches, double crochet 2 together the next 2 stitches, and don't worry if it's not so tidy at the top here, especially if it's your first time doing amigurumi, because we'll have the cream going on the top, so you're not going to see a lot of these stitches anyway. Double crochet 2 together, and one more double crochet 2 together, to our last 2. So what we're going to do in these last 2 stitches is we're going to skip the first one, slip stitch through both parts of the second one. So we skip this stitch, insert into the next, yarn over, pull through, and pull through the one on your hook, sorry. Going to yarn over and fasten off, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail because we need to do a little bit of weaving just to. So I can take my stitch marker out now. Okay, so taking your thread on, and we've got this little hole here that we just want to fill in. So we're going to go in behind a post again. over the next post, in, behind a post, and back out again. Over the next post, in, behind a post, and back out again. Over the post, in, and I'm going to go across to just because I want to finish it off at the back, and just pull it tight. And that closes off your ball quite nicely. So that's one end and the other end. So just going to finish off here by going through a little stitch, back through the loop, tie off with a little knot, and then take your needle all the way through your stuffing, push it down and snip off your end, and that end will now just disappear nicely into the ball, and we can just roll it in our hands just to give it a nice ball shape. So that's the pudding made. So let's go on to the cream. So we're going to move on to the cream part of the Christmas pudding, and the first thing we need to do is to start off with a magic ring. Again, you can do this in whichever way you prefer. First 6 rows are exactly the same as the first 6 rows of the Christmas pudding, because it's going to sit upside down, so it's going to sit on the top of the pudding, so it's exactly the same as the first 6 rows. So I'll put it up on the screen now, the pattern you need for the first 6 rows. I don't need to go through it again because obviously you've already done it once. If you do need me to go through it again, just go back to the very start of the video where we started with Christmas pudding, and you can see exactly how to do those first 6 rows. So pause the video now whilst you make your first 6 rounds of your cream for your Christmas pudding. Okay, so I finished rounds 1 to 6, which are exactly the same as the Christmas pudding, and we're now going to start on the drip part, if you like, of the cream, so the bits that fall down. I've just put this purple book down because it's tricky to see the white cotton on the white table background, so hopefully this will make it a little bit easier. And I think I'm just going to take the lights down a little bit as well. So 1 second. Okay, so ordinarily that would be quite dark for me, but I just want you to be able to see what I'm doing here. So we're going into the next stitch, okay, this one here, and we're going in with 2 trebles, 1 and 2, a double treble, so yarn over, so 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then 2 more ordinary trebles, 1 and 2. We're going to skip the next stitch, and we're going to double crochet in the one after it. So I'm skipping this stitch, it's almost hidden behind the trebles we've made, so I'm skipping this stitch here, and I'm going to double crochet into the next stitch. In the next stitch we're going to do 3 trebles, so 1, 2, oops, there's 2, and 3, skip a stitch, double crochet in the next stitch. In the next stitch we're going to do a repeat of that first one, so I'm going to do a treble, a treble, a double treble, so yarn over, and then 2 more trebles, all in that same stitch. 1 and 2, skip a stitch, double crochet. In the next stitch we're going to do 3 trebles, so that's 1, 2 and 3, and we basically follow this pattern. So we skip a stitch, double treble. In the next stitch, 2 trebles, 1 double treble, 2 trebles, skip a stitch, double crochet. Next stitch, 3 trebles in the same stitch, skip a stitch, double crochet, and we're going to do that all the way around. So pause the video now whilst you complete your little drips of cream all the way around, and I'll put the pattern up on the screen for you so you don't have to remember it. So I'm just coming up to the end now. I've done my last smaller shell, if you like, so skip a stitch, double crochet, and then I'm just going to slip stitch into that very first stitch just to fasten off, yarn over, pull through, and we're going to leave a long tail because we're going to use this tail to sew on the cream to the pudding. Okay, so I have my little pudding and I have my cream. I'm going to match up where the centre point is of the pudding. In fact, I'm just going to trim this tail off just so it doesn't risk poking out. So where your centre of the pudding is and the centre of the cream, just try and match those up, and try and get one of the smaller droplets of cream between the eyes. If you have one of the bigger ones between the eyes, it could just hide the eyes altogether. Entirely up to you want to do this. So marry the two up so the centres are together. Then take your yarn needle and thread on that nice long tail that we left. And we're on the side here, so what we're going to do is just go through a stitch and come out somewhere on the other side, maybe a couple of stitches over. You could go across. I like to leave some of these just a little bit flappy so that you can sort of, it's got a bit more texture and movement to it, but it's entirely up to you. So I've done one there, and I'm going to go back in through another stitch and back out the other side. I'm just going to work my way around that all through the pudding, taking care when you get nearer to the eyes that you're not actually sewing down on the eyes, that there is a little bit of space there. Managed to catch that one up there. Here we go. And then just keep going round, nice and secure. Now that's secured on, it's not going to fall off, but I don't really want all of these bits sticking out, so I'm just going to go around now and go through the opposite side just to hold that down. So I'm going to come out the other side. Try and make that tail a little bit shorter. There you go, and this time I want that flappy bit there to go down, so I'm just going to go across one. And it really is just having a play around to see where you want your cream to attach, where you'd like it to maybe be a bit looser. So So obviously I don't want all those stitches to be seen there, so I'm going to sew that one down as well. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that, but I think I'd like that to be a bit tighter. So I'm going to go back and go through that stitch there, just because that's at the front, to look nice and neat from the front, because that's the part we're going to see the most of. And you can just keep weaving in and out until you're happy that you have the look that you want. And when you are happy, try and make your yarn come out somewhere near the back so that we can go through a stitch, through the loop, fasten off into a knot, and then take the yarn through the cream, through the bottom of your pudding, and cut off your yarn. I'm going to reball it, washed about in our hands. So there we have the pudding. It looks like he's got a little mop cap on at the moment. So the next thing to do are the holly leaves. So the final bit of crochet we need to do is to make our holly leaves, and we're going to make 3 of these. I'm going to start off by making a slip knot, and then we're going to chain 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to make a double crochet in the second chain from the hook. So we don't count the one on the hook. So we count 1 and 2. So we make a double crochet in that stitch there. In the next stitch we're going to do a half treble, so yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through. You should have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull 3. Now on the top of this half treble we're going to do the picot stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3 chains, and then we're going to slip stitch in the very first chain that we made. So slip stitch into there, and that is our picot made. Next stitch, double crochet, next stitch, half treble, and then make another picot. 1, 2, 3 chains, slip stitch into that first chain that you made, oops, through the one on your hook, double crochet into the next stitch, half next, picot, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch into the first chain, and then double crochet into the last chain of that 8 that we did right at the beginning, and just pull on that tail to tighten it up. Now what we're going to do now is to work back up the other side. So we need to turn our work, make sure our tail is out of the way, and we're going to work into the first chain here, and we're going to go in with a double crochet. Next one we're going to do is a half treble, then the picot, double crochet in the next, half treble in the next, oops, picot, double crochet in the next stitch, and then we're going to slip stitch into the stitch the first stitch on the other side here, so the first one that we made, the first double crochet that we made. Underneath both parts of that stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through the loop on your side, and then yarn over, pull through, and leave enough of a tail because obviously we need to sew in our ends. So you have your 2 picots either side, and then you have this other picot at the top here that gives us our point. Okay, so this would be the end where you're going to have your pom-pom or your berry, whichever you're going to use to make, and the one that has the short tail is the spiky end at the end of your holly berry. So you need to make 3 of those. So I've got my 3 here. So pause the video now whilst you make your 3 holly leaves, and I will join you back in a moment. So the final part then is to do lots of sewing. So let's weave in our short ends just to get rid of those. And we don't need to do rule of 3 because we're just trying to hide the ends away. We're going to be sewing over the part, so let's get rid of all 3 of our ends. Alright, so we're going to arrange our leaves around the top of our pudding, and you kind of want to have them, make sure they're the right way around, because that really would help. That one was the wrong way around as well. And then just have a look and see how it looks to you. Are you happy? You don't necessarily want a leaf coming down the front because that sort of interferes with the face. So if you think your first 2 are going to be sort of placed here, and then your third one at the back, so you have that sort of shape to your leaves. So I'm happy where they're going to go. And very much like when we did the cream, we're just going to insert our hook and come out somewhere on the leaf, insert back in, maybe try and come out near the picots so they're not hidden. Sorry, so they're not sticking up. We want them hidden, or we want our stitches hidden anyway. Okay, so I'm going to go back in and do one more over this side just because I don't really want that flapping around there. And then I'm going to come back up towards the middle for finishing off, because I'm going to have my pom-pom there, so the knots will be hidden. So I'm going to go through one of my stitches, she says, come on, in you go, back through the loop, and then just fasten off with a little knot, going through the leaf, through the cream, through the pudding, oh, oops, try that again. So through the cream, through the pudding, taking the yarn with you this time. Here we go. Pull that tail through. And snip off the ends. Okay, so that's one done. I want to do the same for the second one. So think about where you want the second one to be. Make sure it's the right way up. Your thumb. So I'm just sewing on my final one. So with this one then, and I come back up through the middle, I want to come up either side of the stitches, sorry, the middle of the leaves, because I need to make my hanging loop. So my hanging loop's going to be here. I'm going to join it onto that one, I think. And I'm just going to tie a double knot there, just so it's very secure, and then take the thread back through the pudding. So there we have our pudding with our holly and our hanging loop. We just need to put our berry on the top. So for sewing the berry on the top, red yarn, and I've gone through the eye and I've double strengthened it, just because I hate pulling my yarn and then the needle falling off the end. So I've just tied a knot in the end there. So I'm going to go through a little bit of a stitch in the center there, and then just before the knot I'm going to go back through, so I know that's nice and tight. I'm not going to cut that end off yet, and I'm going to go through again through another stitch just to make sure everything's nice and in place before we sew on the pom-pom. So the pom-poms, these are felted pom-poms that I'm using, so you should be able to put your needle through and they're not going to come off or apart. If you're making your own pom-poms, then you need to think about how you're going to join those on. So we need to just make these very small stitches in roughly the same place as the initial knot, and then go back up through the middle of the pom-pom, taking care not to sew in the handle, and then back out somewhere near the starting knot underneath. You could, if you really didn't want to sew them on, you could actually glue them on using a hot glue gun. Go through. There we are. What I'm going to do now is just tie off using that long tail that I had earlier. Come on. And then I can go underneath through the bottom, as I've done with all the other stitches, and fasten that bit off. And I can just come in close with this one because I know where the knot is. You could cut it off before if you want to, but then you'd have more difficulties tying them off. So there is our little Christmas pudding hanging tree decoration. If you didn't want to have it as you could just have it as a little favour maybe on your dinner plate. It would be quite cute. Then you wouldn't need to have the hanging part, so when we came to that bit, just tie it off and feed it through. So there you go, that's how to make your Christmas pudding for part of your Christmas dinner, Christmas tree decorations. I really hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified every time a video goes live and you won't miss out on any of my Christmas patterns. Everything I've talked about today will be linked in the descriptions below, and there are 2 other videos on screen now to help you on your crochet journey. I will see you over there. Thank you so much for joining me on this one, and happy Christmas hooking!